Well, it is early March, and if you didn't prune your fruit trees, it's not too late. And I'm with John from Bartlett Tree Experts. And John, really, this time of year isn't too late to be pruning?
No, it's actually a really good time to prune, just because it's just about to have bud break right now. And if you do it close to bud break, you're cutting the tree, and the tree is able to not heal over itself, but grow over the wounds a lot faster at this time of year, which is better to reduce the incidence of disease getting into the cuts.
So that's a great tip for people. And so what else do we want to look for when we're trimming trees, especially fruit trees? What do we want to do when we come out and look at these?
Ideally, you want to make sure to think about the overall height. How tall do you want your tree to be? Ideally, it's nice to have a tree that you can pick the fruit close to the ground, not have to climb a ladder while you're working on it. Some people get freaked out by, oh my goodness, I'm making this big cut because you're trying to keep it small. But as you can see on this tree, I've made some very large cuts up here.
Right.
Because this tree is extremely vigorous and it has put out, 6-foot shoots of growth. If you let those go up and only cut them at halfway, that's 3 feet. Next year it does the same thing, and it gets way out of reach at that point. So ideally, keep it small. Keep things cut back like I've done here. Those will sprout out. Eventually you'll get fruit spurs going on there. This tree is very young and in training, so I'm leaving a few of these here to push out growth. And then we have a branch here from another tree that was developed last year. Pardon me, I don't want to poke you in the eye.
No, that's okay.
That's what the
safety glasses.
are for.
That's another great tip, is don't forget your safety glasses.
Yeah. But this was 1 year sprout from here to here last year. Then the last year's growth came on, put out there, but it put on all of these here, which is all fruit buds, which this season will flower and produce fruit. These ones here will then do the same thing and end up with fruit buds in here the following season, which eventually we could cut back to here. I'll just do that.
Sure.
To make the tree smaller and keep it small, which you want to do. Keep it tight, and that way, if you have a really long branch with fruit way out here, eventually you end up with branch breakage. So you want to keep them in to where it's nice and tight and can hold its fruit.
And that's really another great tip, because you always want to be thinking in the future. So you want to kind of look at that and then make those cuts a little bit more judiciously like that.
Exactly.
But you have another tree that we want to look at and talk about some more tips for our homeowners.
Yes.
So let's go over there.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of snow flurries here, which is kind of, it's March.
It's that
and
time
so
of year.
it is that time of year. And so it's still pruning you could do this time of year. And so we're at a different tree. What would you think to do here?
The best thing to do is, it gets a little too thick, so you want to do some cuts to open up it to get better light penetration, keep better air circulation for reduced disease. In the springtime when it's raining all the time.
Sure.
The faster the tree can dry out, the better it is to reduce the disease. Plus, cutting back the ends to reduce the amount of end weight when you put on fruit. A big long tree like this weight's down, it can break. So you go along and cut it back a little bit. And that way your fruit stays back in here, and then it can hold itself a lot better.
Right. And then what about some of the bigger limbs inside? Would you do something there?
Oh yes, there's a couple of big cuts I see up in there to reduce it and take back the weight and get good light penetration for the tree.
And really you're shaping the tree too, because we want them to look beautiful in our gardens too.
Exactly.
and produce fruit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, these are the tree experts, Bartlett Tree Experts. And so if you're just looking at your trees and you think, well, I've let them go too many years and you need some help, please go to gardentime.tv. We'll click over their website and you can get some help from Bartlett Tree Expert. Thanks so much for all your tips.
You're welcome.